So my name is Laurie Wallmark, and I wrote this book called Ada Byron Lovelace and the Thinking Machine. I did not illustrate the book. I am not that talented. I had a very talented illustrator. Her name was April Chu. And here's the dedication to the book. I dedicated it to my daughters, Kim and Lisa, who love math as much as Ada did. Now, a funny thing about this dedication is my illustrator's dedication. She dedicated it to her husband, Toby. My husband's name is Toby. So as far as I'm concerned, I dedicated it to my children and my husband, Toby. Okay, so one of the things I need you people to help me with, I'm going to be asking questions along the way. And one of the things I want you to notice is, look here in the corner here. We have gears. You're going to see a lot of gears because we're talking about machines. So let's get started. I'm going to read and then maybe ask you a few questions to help me out. Ada was born into a world of poetry, but numbers, not words, captured her imagination. Her mother, Lady Byron, had a passion for geometry. In fact, her nickname was the Princess of Parallelograms. But her famous father dominated the household. Beloved for his romantic poems, Lord Byron was a celebrity throughout the world. So my first question for you is, how do we know that Mom liked math? Yeah.
Well, she had, I can't say the shape, but I can, there's a picture.
She's holding a geometric shape, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay. How else? How do you think she knows what math is? How do you think she knows that she loves math? Not that
She has a passion for geometry.
Right. Well, I wrote those words, but what's in the picture that tells you that?
That there's this bird and it has words on it.
She's got these numbers over the crib and the blackboard. One of the best things about picture books is it's not just the author. You also get an illustrator, so the illustrator gets to add things to the story. Okay, so how about Dad? How do we know that he likes writing? Yeah.
He's holding a poem.
He's holding a what?
A poem.
He's holding a poem, yes. His poem is called Epitaph for a Dog. That was one of the real poems that Lord Byron wrote. And here's a dog. Unfortunately, Lord Byron was also notorious for his scandalous behavior. So scandalous that Lady Byron bundled up her new baby and fled London to her parents' home, over 100 miles away. Ada never saw her father again. Now Ada could only know her father through his books, and with Ada was lonely. Her journals, filled with pages of inventions and equations, kept her company. The best part was when her sketches flew off the page and became real. So do either of you see something funny in the birds? Yeah.
There's a machine bird.
There's a machine bird. Do you think that really existed? No, I think that was her imagination. Inventors have to have a good imagination to be able to think up some things. And then I'd like you to introduce you to Mrs. Puff, her cat. You're going to see a lot of Mrs. Puff as we go along. Ada's latest invention was a flying machine. She had built a set of real wings, but could they actually fly? First, Ada needed to compute the wings' power. She broke the problem into steps: surface area and weight, wind speed and angles, multiplying and dividing over and over again. Ada loved numbers, but these calculations seemed endless. Wasn't there an easier way? Writing for so long made her fingers hurt. She wiggled them and returned to her numbers. 15 times 12 equals 180. So what in this picture shows us how much she liked flying and wanted to invent a flying machine? What do you see?
She has a flying horse.
Right? She has a flying horse. And in fact, that's how she thought it would work, putting wings on a horse. Yeah.
A horse with wings is called Pegasus.
That's right. Horse with wings is called Pegasus. Right? And now you can see her drawing of Pegasus and then some of the wings. The sky darkened and thunder crashed. Rain pounded on the roof and pelted through the open window. Ada jumped up to latch the shutters. The curtains flapped in and out like sails, billowing in the wind. Sails! Sails were like wings. Ada could use the wind to do an experiment for her flying machine. She grabbed her journal and charged out into the howling storm. What is her expression? What do you think she's thinking? She's smiling. What's she thinking, though? Yeah. What do you think she's thinking?
She's thinking that this will work.
Mm-hmm. How about Mrs. Puff, though? What's Mrs. Puff thinking? Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Right. Cats don't like water, and Mrs. Puff is not at all happy about what's happening here. Again and again, Ada launched her model sailboat across the pond. Each time she adjusted the sails and studied the effect on the little boat's speed. A storm of numbers and calculations whirled in her mind and spilled onto her pages. What's happening with Mrs. Puff now?
She's under the bag, and she does not like water like most cats.
Right, she does not like water. She's waiting to get out of there, that's for sure. This is my favorite drawing in the whole book. Night fell, Ada returned home, muddy, dripping wet, and triumphant. When Nanny saw Ada, she scolded her for being out in such dreadful weather. She sniffed that she didn't care what Lady Byron thought. Girls should not waste their time with math and science and experiments and other such nonsense. But to Ada, it wasn't nonsense at all. Numbers were her friends. After dinner, she sprawled on the floor with her puzzle book. Her head was hot and achy. The numbers squirmed about on the page, and her eyes felt as if they were filled with sand from the pond. Now, there's something on this page that's a little funny that I didn't notice till a friend of mine pointed it out. What's something funny happening on this page? There's a frog coming out of the boot there. Yeah. Let's go.
What if he doesn't have a desire about what does?
You're right. You know what I think it probably is it's the inside versus the outside of a shoe. But I never noticed that before, just like I hadn't noticed the frog.
How would you not miss the frog?
I don't know. Like I said, illustrators bring an awful lot to picture books. That's what's really nice about them. By morning, Ada had a high fever. Nanny didn't scold now. She was worried. She cabled Mama to come home right away. Ada had the measles. Through many long days and nights, Mama read Ada her favorite books. The fever finally broke, but the measles left her paralyzed and blind. Do you know what paralyzed and blind mean?
I think it means like blind means your eyesight is just taken away, and then paralyzed means you can't move your head or something.
What do you think paralyzed means?
I was going to say that when you're blind, you can't see anything.
That's
I
right.
read a book about Helen Keller. She's blind and deaf.
That's right. Paralyzed means that that part of your body can't move. So for Ada, it was her legs. She couldn't move her legs. To keep Ada's mind sharp, Mama quizzed her on math problems. How much was 82 minus 25? 18 times 47. 96 divided by 13. Numbers chased each other around and around in Ada's head. And there she is with Mrs. Puff keeping her company through that long, hard time of her life. Mama posed ever harder problems, and Ada solved them all. Problems like, how long does it take to travel to London? By carriage, it was an overnight journey. But Ada's flying machine could go much faster than a carriage. If Ada flew, she'd be able to reach London in only a few hours, just in time for tea. Ada's number company. 15 times 12 was still 180 and always would be, whether Ada could see or not. Over the next few weeks, her eyes got better, but it was 3 long years before she could put away her crutches. The girl who wanted to fly could not even walk. But Ada still had her numbers that mattered to her more than ever. Okay, so in this picture, there's some fantastical things going on in this picture. What do you see?
flying machine. Ada Lovelace is in a flying machine.
Okay, so I think it's actually a picture of Ada flying.
Yeah, I said that.
Oh, okay. What do you see? That's
There's
fine.
a lot of tea. There's a teapot and some.
It's a teapot.
And there's tea.
Right, creamer and sugar. Yeah, those are not normally buildings that you see in town, right? The illustrator put them in to reflect the text. Mama recognized her daughter's passion. She hired tutors so Ada could learn math at an even higher level. Ada's favorite was Mary Fairfax Somerville, the well-known scientist and mathematician. Somerville was living proof that girls could do math and do it well. She had even written books on the subject, another thing girls were not supposed to do. Now, the funny thing about this picture is, see the three women right here? Which one do you think is Ada? I thought it was obvious, by the way, and clearly it's not. So which one do you guys think is Ada? Okay, what color?
I think it's probably blue.
The blue one?
Yes.
Why?
Because we're looking at each
Okay, who do you think is Ada?
Good.
Which one?
Good.
Okay, I thought it was the red one also, for several reasons. One, she's sort of looking up to this person, you know, like listening to her talk. She's a little bit shorter, and she's in front. But when I've read this book to other kids, sometimes they say blue, sometimes they say yellow, sometimes they say red. So something that I thought was absolutely obvious, certainly very true. How could anyone believe anything else? Well, they can.
This one's correct.
I have no idea. And every time I do this, I think I have got to email the illustrator and ask her, and then I forget by the time I get home.
And why can't we remind you at the end of it?
I'm sure she does know, even though I don't. Somerville was so impressed by Ada's sharp reasoning skills, she invited Ada and her mother to a party. Not just a party for dancing and dining, but for sharing ideas. The guests were scientists like Michael Faraday, who studied electromagnetism, and Charles Wheatstone, who invented a device to display three-dimensional images. But for Ada, the one who mattered most was Charles Babbage. He was a famous mathematician and inventor, just like Ada wanted to be. Though she was only 17 and Babbage 41, Ada spoke about math with a precision and understanding that impressed him. So much so that Babbage invited her to visit his laboratory. Funny thing about this spread has nothing to do with my book, but has to do with Google Boston. I was in Google Boston 2 weeks ago, giving Take Your Child to Work Day events, and I was in the Charles Babbage room. They also have an Ada Lovelace room and a Grace Hopper room, and I'm writing a book about Grace Hopper that comes out next year, but I was in the Babbage room. Ada brought her journals to show him her own experiments and inventions. Their tea grew cold as they talked about their love of machines and mathematics. Babbage didn't see her as simply a young girl. He treated her like the fellow mathematician and inventor she already was. Before, numbers had been Ada's only friends. Now Babbage was a friend as well. Okay. Look. Ada is looking at a mechanical doll that Babbage had. But look at her magnifying glass. What do you see in that glass?
It's a bird.
Just a regular old bird?
It's a fish bird. A flying fish.
I think it is a mechanical bird. Just like she was dreaming of before, now she's seeing a machine, this mechanical doll, and in her mind, yeah.
Why would he make it? And then
He didn't make the mechanical doll, he had bought it.
from who?
I don't know.
Who did he make? He made the book.
He made the machine that we're going to see in a moment. Okay, so let's, in fact, here we are in the moment where we're going to see the machine. Babbage showed Ada his difference engine, a revolutionary mechanical calculator. He knew Ada would understand how his extraordinary invention worked. Ada did more than understand. She couldn't wait to see the difference engine in action. She chose to have the machine solve a simple problem, one she could easily do in her head. 15 times 12. Okay, so how big is a calculator?
Small.
How big is a calculator?
Small enough to fit in your hand.
Right, it's about hand size. It is certainly not this big. But back then, back then, that's what you needed to have just something that could add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Reaching inside the machine, Ada rotated the metal columns until the numbers 15 and 12 appeared. With a crank of the handle, she powered the calculator. Gears clicked and turned, cylinders pumped up and down. Small hammers clanked as the numbers spiraled upward, guiding the machine to the correct solution. After a few turns of the handle, the answer appeared on the final column, 180. It was right. Now, when I was doing research for this book, and I did a lot of research, as you can imagine, one of the things I found was the Computer Museum out in California had built a difference engine. And they have, speaking of YouTube, they have it on YouTube. You can see it in action. So that's how I knew about things spiraling upward and things clanking, because I could see the machine that they built. Babbage told Ada he had designed an even more powerful device, a mechanical computer. His analytical engine would solve harder problems by working through them step by step. It could even make decisions all by itself, a true thinking machine. The only trouble was Babbage hadn't actually built it. In fact, he never built it. He ran out of money. Ada carried home a stack of Babbage's lab books, 30 in all, filled with notes about the analytical engine. In her room, she studied the technical descriptions and pored over the diagrams. Ada quickly realized that without instructions, the analytical engine would be a useless pile of metal parts. It needed numbers to make it work. Her numbers, her friends. Ada decided to create an algorithm, a set of mathematical instructions for the analytical engine. The machine could follow these instructions and solve a complex math problem, one difficult to figure out by hand. Okay. In this picture, do you see something in this picture that you see on me?
The thing on your shirt.
The thing on my shirt. This is a punched card. And this was the way that the machine would receive instructions. It would just be a card with holes punched in the right places, yeah.
Is that why you picked? Is that why you picked these, or is that why you picked the shirt?
Well, remember, I had nothing to do with the picture. The illustrator did the
Is
picture.
that why you picked that shirt?
Yes.
Oh.
And the person who made this shirt, it also says Lovelace, 1815, which is when she was born. Okay, so here's Mrs. Puff. What do you think she's thinking? Yeah.
I'm gonna go to bed because like she's stretching.
I think Mrs. Puff is a little bored. Watching someone else do computer programming is not the most exciting thing. Yeah.
No, she has like a happy face like, yeah, you do that. I'm gonna fall asleep right now. Not like she's bored. She'd be sad.
Oh, she just doesn't need to do it. It's time for her to go to bed. I see. She worked for months revising her instructions. Countless lines of numbers and symbols poured onto her journal pages. After checking and rechecking her algorithm through the night, Ada finally laid down her pen. She hadn't found any errors. The world's first computer program was complete. The gears of Ada's mind whirred with possibilities for future inventions, all controlled by computing machines. She imagined computers would someday design powerful flying machines and majestic sailing ships. They would draw pictures and compose music, and they would play games and help with homework. These are things that you're used to computers doing today, right? Yes. But back then, it truly was revolutionary. It was like science fiction that someone would think this. Yeah.
Why would you, wait, did you just write that because that's what they do right now?
She thought that up.
No, you made the writing up.
I made the writing up, yes, but she is the one who thought that computers might be able to compose music. She is the one that thought that they could be used by engineers to design things.
You are, because you made her think that.
Well, since she was born in 1815,
Yeah,
which was,
but you made her.
in some ways, I made her come to life, yes. But the other thing I want you to point out on this page, here are her notes where she wrote the computer program, and it just says AAL, stands for either Ada Augusta Lovelace or Augusta Ada Lovelace, and I can never remember which one, and I always forget to keep looking it up. But the important part is, it's only her initials. Why didn't she sign her name to this very important work that she did?
Because she didn't want to brag.
She didn't want to brag, that could be. What do you think? Why do you think?
Because she didn't want to. You made her do that. Because you made her.
Dads, why do you think?
They shouldn't want to know that she was a woman.
They didn't want. She was afraid if people knew she was a woman, they wouldn't take it seriously. They would think, oh, it's just a girl, a woman who did that, so it can't be right. But it was right. It was revolutionary. But back in that time, and even later, do you people know, I assume, the Harry Potter books? Who wrote Harry Potter?
J.K. Rowling.
Or Jo Rowling is her name, right? But she didn't use her name either.
I remember reading the second Harry Potter.
Yep.
That's how I know.
Right? So even now, women sometimes will just use their initials instead of their name. Because Babbage never finished building the analytical engine, Ada never got to see her program run. But the influence of her work lives on. More than 100 years before the invention of the modern computer, Ada had glimpsed the future and created a new profession, computer programming. Ada couldn't know that one day a computer language would be named after her, Ada. And one of Ada's uses? To guide modern flying machines. The girl who needed crutches ended up flying after all. And that's the story of Ada. Yeah.
I don't know any computer stuff that has Ada in it. Do you?
The programming language Ada was developed by the Department of Defense. And for a while, every program written by people in the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force,
They name it Ada, though.
they named it after Ada to honor her.
Ada.
She's real.
Oh.
She's a real person, absolutely.
Wait, is this the real story of her life?
This is a biography of a real person.
Wait, so does that mean I could use this for a biography?
Yes, you could.
Okay.
And if you look in the back, there's a little bit more information about her program and some of her nicknames.